The morning of December 26, 1996, unfolded quietly in Boulder, Colorado. Snow rested on rooftops, and the neighborhood appeared undisturbed. Inside a large family home on 15th Street, there was nothing immediately unusual. What seemed at first to be an unfortunate but ordinary situation would soon become one of the most scrutinized and controversial criminal cases in modern history. Decisions made within the first few hours entirely within the bounds of the law would permanently shape the investigation and leave questions that remain unanswered decades later. 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey had been reported missing. Her mother, Patsy Ramsey, told police she discovered a handwritten ransom note on the staircase demanding money and warning the family against contacting authorities. Despite the warning, police were called. Officers arrived believing they were responding to a kidnapping, not a homicide. That initial assumption defined how the situation was handled and influenced every step that followed. The home was not immediately treated as a secure crime scene. Officers did not seal the residence. Friends and family were allowed inside to offer comfort and support. People moved freely through the house. Food and drinks were prepared. Surfaces were touched. Rooms were entered and exited repeatedly. None of this was prohibited by law. At that time, there was no policy requiring an automatic lockdown of a home in a suspected kidnapping case. Hours passed with no communication from the supposed kidnapper. As the deadline mentioned in the ransom note came and went, concern grew. An officer suggested that John Ramsey, JonBenet's father, search the house again to see if anything had been missed. During that search, in a small basement room, John Ramsey discovered his daughter's body. At that moment, the situation shifted from a suspected abduction to a homicide. However, by then, the integrity of the scene had already been compromised. Numerous individuals had been inside the home. Items had been moved. Potential trace evidence had been disturbed. The opportunity to document a pristine crime scene no longer existed. In the days that followed, police released the home back to the family. Shortly afterward, the residence was professionally cleaned. Carpets were shampooed, bathrooms sanitized, surfaces wiped, and debris discarded. This action was legal. The Ramseys owned the property, and there was no legal restriction preventing them from cleaning once the scene had been released. Still, with that cleaning, any remaining physical evidence was permanently lost. As investigators later reviewed the case, troubling details became clearer. The ransom note was unusually long and written on paper from inside the house, using a pen also found there. The amount demanded closely matched John Ramsey's recent work bonus. Yet the note was handled before being fully secured, and the environment in which it was discovered was not controlled. Witness accounts later revealed that household cleaning had taken place while police were still present. Officers acknowledged that the scene had become difficult to manage, with too many civilians inside to maintain forensic integrity. These actions, though questionable in hindsight, did not violate existing procedures. The consequences of those early decisions became evident as the investigation progressed. Forensic teams were left with partial DNA samples, fibers that could not be conclusively traced, and conflicting physical indicators. Some evidence suggested the possibility of an intruder, while other findings raised suspicions about someone within the home. Without an uncontaminated scene, investigators could not reach definitive conclusions. The case became mired in uncertainty. The Ramsey family consistently maintained their innocence and criticized the handling of the investigation. In later years, John Ramsey publicly stated that the home should never have been released or cleaned, arguing that critical evidence may have been lost due to premature decisions rather than intentional wrongdoing. Experts who later examined the case echoed this concern. Veteran homicide investigators emphasized that once a crime scene is altered, it cannot be reconstructed. Even advanced forensic techniques cannot recover evidence that has been wiped away or discarded. In this case, they argued, crucial answers may have been removed along with ordinary household waste. Public scrutiny intensified. Media coverage was relentless, and the case became a national obsession. A grand jury was convened years later and voted to indict the Ramseys on charges related to child endangerment. However, the district attorney declined to pursue prosecution, citing insufficient evidence. evidence that many believe might have existed had the scene been properly preserved. No one has ever been charged with JonBenet Ramsey's murder. Over time, the case has come to represent a broader issue within the justice system: the gap between legality and accountability. It is now frequently cited in criminal justice discussions as an example of how early assumptions and procedural limitations can irreversibly damage an investigation. The house on 15th Street has long since changed owners. Life in the neighborhood has moved on, yet the questions surrounding JonBenet Ramsey's death remain unresolved. Who killed her? Was the answer once present, embedded in fibers, footprints, or fingerprints before it was legally erased? And how many other cases, far less famous, have been quietly compromised in the same way? Because sometimes the most consequential actions at a crime scene are not the ones that occur during crime itself, but the ones that happen afterward.